for your gratuity, and thereafter you are paid monthly through the banks, your monthly pensions. I've not experienced any problem so far, at least as far as I'm concerned.
But does that mean that
when I hear people talk about certain individuals who don't get their pensions on time, my immediate question is, first and foremost, to really check, did they go through a proper process? The older people that you mentioned earlier on, it is very likely that at some stage, somewhere, their documentation was not properly done.
You don't think
you will have to perhaps address this to the Military Pensions Board.
You don't think that the treatment would also vary? I mean, the treatment given to officers might be different given to the soldiers.
Not at all. Not at all.
You don't think
everything is paid through the banks?
Yeah.
And you don't have to even see them. And then if you have issues, actually, you have access to them. You can call them, and then make inquiries.
If I could butt in for a while, I mean,
other matters now, because there's really no way we can talk about remembrance without talking about the circumstances under which these people died. For instance, the videos, just the visuals that we showed just before we came, talk about this. Yes, there will be concern as to just how the family would feel and whether or not they'll be well catered for, considering the sacrifice that their husbands or wives, as it were, would have made. But then you also have to look at whether or not those lives were supposed to have been lost. Would you say that we're really doing what we need to do by our officers and men who are on the war front currently?
I myself have been in combat, and I've experienced the rigors of war, and I've come out of it, thank God. But anytime you see things like that, you don't get used to it. And you always want to see ways that you can improve to make sure that things like that don't happen again. And I'm sure each service, or any of the services that is affected, they always take enough steps to ensure they understand what happened and to ensure that it does not repeat itself. The thing I need to caution about is sometimes when we look at those tactical situations where we have incidents, we kind of use it to try and judge the bigger picture. But it's not always like that. We must look at the bigger picture of what is going on. And the maneuvering within that bigger picture, how effective we are in doing that, I think it gives us more confidence in knowing that those sacrifices that we make are not in vain.
I don't want to delve too much, but I can't help it. There was an investigation conducted by Premium Times shortly after the passing of that officer, and I was saying that one officer spoke to them in confidence as to what exactly was going on the war front. They talked about equipment not being sufficient. Do you keep tabs on what is going on there? I mean, do ex-servicemen keep tabs and say, no, this cannot be allowed to continue, say, putting pressure, for instance, on those still in service, especially those at levels of authority?
You see, when I hear equipment, we'll be hearing equipment. You wonder, because if that indeed is the situation, I do not have intimate details of the operations or the way they've been conducting affairs in that sector. But I know that trying to suggest that the reason for something happening is equipment, I think will be misleading. The events that you have in all these military situations and stuff.
General, you have to give us a moment. We'll come back and discuss that a little further. Do join us again.
All right.
Welcome back. Our closing moments now with Air Vice Marshal Olufemi Idowu. Well, he's retired now, even though I understand that generals never retire. But, you're talking about how talking about lack of equipment could be misleading. There are definitely two issues to that particular story. There's also the part of fifth columnists. Is it something you've also had to deal with?
You know, as I was saying earlier on, the issue of equipment, complaining about equipment. One thing I need to caution is counterinsurgency. It's a very challenging and difficult engagement to be in itself. It requires vigilance. It requires you to be very alert nearly all of the time. And for commanders, recall I said earlier on that we should not look at tactical situations but the overall picture. For commanders who are responsible for a particular theater of operation, the ability to move and orchestrate, move their forces from one location to the other, it can be quite challenging. If terrain, if support from people outside the recognized society are involved. So the issue of having fifth columnists.
How rampant is that?
I really don't know. I mean, I've heard of this. I mean, just like you've had, but I'm yet to know a particular individual who's been identified as fifth, being a member of the fifth columnist.
Because when we hear, that Nigerian army was supplying arms in some instances to members of the Boko Haram sect, or supplying them food, and they were members of the Nigerian army, you have to ask, how possible is this? How feasible really is this? That people will betray their own, their own brothers, as it would seem.
Well, I think you should take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, I'm yet to see any evidence to that fact, and I'm sure.
But did you hear of it?
I didn't hear that particular one. I try as much as possible because you read a lot of stuff in the papers from people who don't want to disclose their identity. But the important thing is for us to stay focused. Just yesterday, I was discussing at a forum where we were talking about the response of government being towards this kind of situation, and we said it's supposed to be an all-of-government approach, and somebody suggested that what we should call it is an all-of-nation approach. All-of-nation because he felt that the contribution of the society and the support of the society was paramount to achieving success. I was saying earlier on that, you see, counterinsurgency is challenging. It's long drawn. There's no quick fix. Trying to, even if you have just one individual left, and he goes about all over the place, causing mayhem, the amount of resources we end up allocating to secure establishments and key places will still be the same. If you have 1,000, you have 2,000. So it's something that requires patience. It's something that requires understanding. And really, our narrative should be far removed from innuendos and, all those things that would tend to discourage the soldiers and try to suggest that the military is not working hard enough.
Air Vice Marshal Olufemi Idowu, we have to thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Daily. That will be it on the program today. Thank you so much for being such wonderful company. Maokbe Ogun, to you in Lagos now.
Well, I'm Chamberlain, and then we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.